The Canon 24-105 f2.8. I photographed a real wedding day with one of these. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and if I will be keeping it. First though, if you're interested, check out my free 2.5-hour wedding photography course and my free preset pack, but only if you can find it. I promise it's not that hard to find. If it's your first time stopping by the channel, I'm Taylor Jackson, a wedding photographer from Canada, and I use all the brands here on the channel, well, at least Nikon, Canon, Fuji, Sony, and sometimes Leica. I'm pretty well versed in all the current offerings for wedding photographers and regularly use whatever the newest is on wedding days. I've just picked up the Canon R5 Mark II a few days ago, so subscribe to the channel and turn the bell on if you're interested in more Canon R5 Mark II content on wedding days. Those videos will be coming soon. Back to the lens. This lens, it sounds amazing. The all-day, do-everything wedding lens, no switching lenses or missing shots because your subject came too close or you didn't have the reach. Now, is this lens really too good to be true? And does it really exist? Also, a strange thing that this tripod collar does not come off. So this piece comes off. You can remove that easily, but then you're stuck with this metal piece, and you can spin it, and you can put it somewhere that's kind of out of your way, but I don't think you can get that off. I think that's just part of the lens, unfortunately. And now, let's get deeper into the investigative journalism that this channel is known for. Well, first, we're gonna start with a fix it and post of the week. At 24, if you don't enable profile corrections, you can actually see the inside of the front of the barrel of the lens. That's kind of funny. Somebody probably realized it in the office and was like, we gotta get Adobe on the phone, call him quick. We gotta fix this lens. It is corrected in your camera, so for JPEGs and video, you're not gonna see it, but it is interesting to note. My understanding is that most of the companies are now fixing lenses in either software or in the camera. Whether you know it or not, it helps create lenses that resolve properly to higher megapixels while also keeping the size, weight, and cost down as much as possible. But this lens is special because it also uses the software corrections and does not keep the size, weight, or cost down at all. For positives, it gives you a huge working millimeter range on wedding days. Here's what I shot on this specific wedding day. Short end and long end, pretty much clustered heavily with about 50% of use, but the distribution in the middle range is more than I expected, so I will say that I used all of this lens all day. For what it's worth, I pretty much shot all of those longer shots during the ceremony, which I will get into a little bit in a moment. The images themselves look really great. There's maybe a bit of weirdness that I can't describe to some of the 24mm images, but I'll figure out what that weirdness is soon. I have my TJM 2024 preset on all of these, and if you're a member, you have access to it. That said, the straight out of camera images are looking great as well. I didn't notice any optical issues other than that weird vignette. High contrast points held together well with no fringes, and overall the images were just really pleasing. It also has nice enough bokeh to make a guy that usually shoots everything at f1.4 happy, and for sure I got more variation on the wedding day than I would normally get. The main negatives with this lens you already know before you click the video. It's heavy, it's expensive, and it's $600 more than the 24-70 f2.8 RF. But it does potentially save you from having to also purchase a 7200, and if you're looking at the very nice Canon 7200 f2.8 for RF, that's another $2,500. Would I miss not having something longer than 200mm during the ceremony? I think you can tell by my 105mm ceremony cluster that this is true. If you are shooting a higher megapixel camera like the Canon R5 or R5 Mark II, you can bounce between crop mode and full frame mode to get some extra reach. It turns your 24-105 into a lens that kind of goes to 168mm, kind of. It's cropping in your camera, but it gives you a file more specific to the shot you are after without any cropping in post. I would say this is something that I use during all ceremonies, regardless of which camera brand I'm shooting. You're probably already convinced that it being a 24-105mm lens at f2.8 is amazing. That is not the question. The question is this actually a lens that you can use for the entire wedding day? Well, the technical answer is yes, but there's a but. I guess I'll give you some details on how my usual day goes in terms of gear. I show up to getting ready typically on a 35mm lens. I'll use that lens until first look or into the ceremony. At that time, I will switch to something bigger and longer. And at this part of the day, this lens feels very normal. To give a brief comparison of sizes, I use the Tamron 35-150 a lot on this channel, and when it's fully extended, it's kind of the same size as this lens. The weight is almost the same as well. The 24-105 being internal zoom is just always this size. Shooting at 24 on a lens like this feels a little bit weird, to be honest. In comparison to the 24-70 f2.8, this is what the 24-70 looks like fully extended. One recommendation I would have here is if you are interested in this lens, please go with a fully grip body or put a grip on your camera. It will make the lens feel a lot lighter. Let's go through the breakdown on how I actually use this lens. These stats are from the images that I delivered. I for sure stack images the most at wide and telephoto, but overall, I was surprised with how much I use the middle. Also, if you're coming from any other system or Tamron, all the zooms go backwards to you. I guess they go forwards if you're a Canon user, but just something that takes a day or two to recalibrate in your brain. That one's user error here. One thing that is a bit challenging for me is that with internal zooms, you have to look at the millimeter markings to know where you're at. Usually I reset my lens to the widest so that when I pick up my camera, I know where I'm at. And my brain just kept setting it to 105, and there's no easy way to see. Usually if you'd be at 24, the zoom would be down here, so you'd visually know where you were at. There are obviously benefits of being a full internal zoom. If it is a zoom that moves in and out, you're much more likely to get dust sucked in there or some moisture. So this is better overall, I would say. But in my personal preference, I think that I prefer the extending zooms, even just for storage in my bag. I did plan to use this lens all day. Well, the f2.8 aperture is fine for low light coverage. This went down to candlelight very quickly, and I just felt better and more comfortable on an f1.8. This is a real wedding day after all, not just a styled shoot. So now let's talk about where this lens would find its way into my kit. Even though the focal lengths and the aperture tell you that it is an all day everything lens, I personally couldn't see myself using it all day. For getting ready coverage, I'm a lot happier on a 35mm prime or even a 24-70 f2.8. For the ceremony, it's nice to have the extra reach over 24-70. And starting at that point of the day, this lens is very, very useful for candids, for photos of the family, for photos of the couple, as well as the ceremony. Then once you get to the reception, if it's really dark like it was today, I will find myself going to another and also much smaller lens. So overall, my thoughts on this lens, well, it looks like a great all-day lens. In my opinion, I would rather be on other lenses for parts of the day. Would this cover over 50% of the wedding day for me? Absolutely, yes it would. Is it worth the additional cost in terms of weight, size, and money to get the additional 35mm from your 24-70? For me, that's a very hard call. I will be bringing this lens to Iceland for our wedding workshop next week to test it out more on the R5 Mark II. When looking at our Iceland workshop, being outside in the mist and wind and potentially rain, this is actually the perfect lens, but it is a very specific use case and for sure not the normal. The Iceland workshop is sold out, but we do have another workshop coming up in Majorca this March if you're interested in joining us. And if you do live in the US or Canada, message me on Instagram if you want to buy a ticket, and I'll send you a USD checkout link, which saves you paying the VAT, which is kind of nice. More to come on this lens. It will be in my bag for more weddings before I finally decide if it is for me or if it is not for me. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to get that free preset pack and free 2.5-hour wedding photography course if you're interested. I'll see you again next week.